Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show.
Hi, everybody. It's Simone Morris here, host of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm so excited to join you this week and give you some updates on what's happening with the podcast. First of all, I want to say a big thank you for you to continue listening to this podcast and learning from the guests that we bring on and from my career journey. That was my original vision, just to really empower you to be in the driver's seat for your career. I know that things happen and I know that it's painful, but we must move forward and we must get into the driver's seat. We must take ownership of our careers in order to be successful. So that's the message, the overarching theme of the podcast that I want to leave with you each and every episode. I want to share something that's super exciting that I have been working on, and I've put it into action, and I want you to take advantage of this opportunity. I wanted to let you know that I created a discussion group for the podcast, and this discussion group lies on LinkedIn platform. That platform is going to help you build strategic relationships. And so this is an opportunity for you to show up on that platform on a consistent basis, even if it's just to have conversations with other listeners of the podcast about questions and what you thought of the episode and what you'd like to see. And, even questions if you have for the guests that we have on the podcast. It's just going to be an amazing space as I envision it. So I invite you to head over to the LinkedIn platform and look for the Power of Owning Your Career podcast discussion group. And it's under the groups on the LinkedIn platform. So be sure to take advantage of that. I'm looking forward to connecting and conversing with you on that platform. I also want to ask you to share out on social media or with your friends to get them to download the Power of Owning Your Career podcast so that we can continue to build our tribe. Right now, I know that we are growing leaps and bounds, which is a wonderful thing in different locations. I always like to highlight the top 5 with the US, France, Canada, Germany, and South Africa. Thank you so much for having so many listeners listening in those areas. We do have, I've said it before, 23 countries, just trying to get growth, more listeners in each of these countries. And thank you for listening. It really means a lot to me. I want to tell you that as a podcast host, I wanted to bring my vision to you. I didn't necessarily have these lofty goals of what it would mean. And I have just taken the journey with you, a journey for passion, and really a lot to do around me wanting to stay in the driver's seat for my career and wanting others to do the same. It is beginning to provide fruit from this journey, and that's exciting for me. I will have more to say to you about connection and collaboration opportunities that are popping off as a result of being a podcast host. So I'm just super excited to do something that I love to do and to share this wisdom with you. You will enjoy this week's episode, so stay tuned. And as always, stay in the driver's seat for your career. I'm so excited to have Megan Fenyo join the podcast this week. Megan has this amazing movement going on. It's called I Am Enough, and I so want to get into the conversation. But just a little bit about Megan before we dive in. Megan is a transformational mindset coach. She's a best-selling author, a professional speaker, a podcaster. Megan, what is it you're not doing? You're amazing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Simone, for having me. I'm so glad that we reconnected again.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you're currently doing.
So I am a mental health therapist. I've been practicing for about 15 years and left, corporate America about 2 years ago and jumped into entrepreneurship, and then wrote a book after dealing with my own trauma for the last 2 years, being involved in a narcissistic abusive marriage. So the book kind of came about while I was working through that trauma. And since then, I have created this international movement called the I Am Enough movement. So it's pretty awesome. So I'm really focused on that. I just launched my I Am Enough TV show, and then I also have my podcast. So lots of exciting stuff going on. And I got my hands in all kinds of stuff.
Oh my goodness. So exciting. So exciting. So tell us, how did this international movement come about?
Oh, I love this story. So basically, once my book, launched, it's called You Are Enough. And, it was amazing. I got great feedback on it, became a bestseller. I was getting kind of, there was something else I wanted to do. I had this nudging feeling okay, what else can I do to give back? I need to do something else. And as a therapist, I talk a lot about visual coping skills and how we use coping skills to cognitive restructure our negative thoughts. So it's a way to distract our negative thoughts and replace it with something positive. And so that's kind of how the movement, I created these cards. They're a little bit bigger than business cards. And it says, I am enough on the front. And then on the back, it has the word because with 3 lines. And people will write why they believe that they're enough. And they'll take it with them throughout the day. They'll have one in their bedroom. They'll have one in their purse. I have them all over the place. And so it's awesome because people can order these cards absolutely free. You get 5 of them. And so it's just a way to distract your mind because we all struggle with being enough at times, whether it be our health, relationship, career. I even struggle with it. Even though, I have this movement, I still struggle at times with being enough. So it's been widely accepted. I have sent cards to 25 states and 11 countries just in 6 months, which means that, people have heard about the movement through social media or friends. Not that I just sent the cards out to say, oh, we've got our 11th country, but organically, people have heard about the movement. So it's spreading like wildfire, and the foundation of the movement is just to give back and to give people a skill that they can use day in and day out to help them change their negative mindset.
I love that. That is so awesome. Really love that. So as you think about your journey from corporate to, being in business for yourself and now this movement, what would you say, Megan, is your formula for owning your career?
Well, to be honest, I had been a therapist for about 12 years, 13 years. And never thought about being an entrepreneur because, I was making 6 figures at the hospital and, this never came into my mind. But I actually lost my job. I actually was fired from my job at a hospital and I was devastated. The formula for success, and where I'm at now is the fact that I said, no, I'm not going to go back and get a full-time job, because I could have easily done that. I was working through some trauma in my life. And again, I had this nudging feeling and I was like, no, I'm going to try this entrepreneurship thing out. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was like, I'm going to do this. So I came opened my private mental health practice, and then started writing my book, and I'm still not making my six figures, and that's okay. But I took control and I said, I'm not going to live this life, this mediocre life where I'm going to be working for someone else. I didn't want to work for someone else anymore. I wanted to work for me.
Right. So would you say that was the moment that signified to you that you were in the driver's seat for your career, or was there another moment in your career that signaled to you that you needed to take responsibility for your career?
I think the moment that I lost my job at the hospital was when I said, okay, I'm responsible for my career. I'm responsible for where this goes now. I feel like, but in a way, I feel like I've always been in the driver's seat in relation to like corporate America, because I always worked for the government and this and that. But I really feel like taking that chance, taking that jump really happened, and taking that full control really happened, when I started my own business.
Well, give us, Megan, some strategies. You're a mindset coach. So what are some strategies that people can use as staying power? I would say if you're in a place where you're about to leave corporate or you're about to transition and you want to try to be an entrepreneur, what kind of messaging can we play to our minds to help us stay the course?
I love that question. That is exactly what my book is based on. There's 5 steps, and that's life changing, whether it be a career, a health issue, a relationship ending, we truly have to go and figure out who we truly are. We have to discover who we are, what our values are, what do we want in life, visualize, our passion and our purpose. Because once we do that deep dive and the hard work, it's not easy work. That is when you can start visualizing and start putting together the life that you want for yourself. And so those are the first 2 steps in my book. And so those are really, really big. You have to know yourself. You have to know what motivates you, what gets you excited to get out of bed every morning. You have to know if you need to improve on time management skills or what areas you're lacking in. And then another major skill is kind of just what I talked about with the visual coping skills. It's what we call grounding skills, because what stops people from leaving a job and jumping into a new business, entrepreneurship, what have you, is the fear and the negative self-talk. And so that is actually step 3 in my book of just learning skills, grounding skills to distract your mind and restructure those negative thoughts. And that's what like the visual coping skills do. And learning just to be here in the moment, knowing that everything's not going to happen at once. That was a huge lesson for me. And just learning to kind of enjoy the journey and the ups and downs that are going to happen.
I love what you just said. When I was pregnant, I remember, actually, I think it was when I was doing my coach's training, the instructor told me that to enjoy being pregnant, just enjoy the journey. So I just love what you just said.
Yes, it's actually in my bedroom. I have a vision board filled with all these different quotes, and it's actually in my bathroom. And it says, just enjoy the journey. And there's so many times that I have to remind myself of that because I want it just now. I want it now. I want to make this money now. And it's just all part of the process. And the more you enjoy the journey, the more you are aware of who you are and the more you know yourself.
Absolutely. How important would you say that risk have been to your career journey?
Oh, risks. I feel like obviously, I think when people hear the word risks, that correlates with fear, right? And so risk, obviously, my biggest risk was not going back to a full-time job, and sitting here, and I actually had to file for bankruptcy right when I went into entrepreneurship because of my ex-husband. So that was risk. And there's been times where I literally didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. And I was making six figures 2 years ago. But it's all about the risk, because even though there's fear, if you truly are passionate in what you're doing, my passion is to help people and is to encourage people to believe that they're enough. If you have that passion, the risk, your passion far outseeds your risk and your fear. Because everything in life we have risks. But I love that question because it's so profound that I'm not going to lie. You do have to take risks. You have to be in charge of your life, to own your life.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So tell us about, mentors and sponsors and how impactful they have been to your career journey.
Well, as a therapist, I always encourage people, if they're looking to have this big change in their life, to either, seek out a therapist or a mentor or a coach, because you need that support. It's all about accountability. I would be lost without my accountability partners. One of them is my roommate, my best friend. And that's like personally and professionally in a way. She's my accountability partner when she's like, Megan, you've been on your computer for 12 hours. Stop. Like, you need to take a break. But then obviously personally, when I'm just feeling like I can't do this or I'm overwhelmed, but then, having an accountability partner who is in the entrepreneurship world or is in, the field that you're going into, because I have got one, accountability partner, mentor that is a therapist, that I have when it's in my private practice. But then I have so many different mentors, friends, colleagues in the entrepreneurship world that I seek out all the time, because you cannot do this on your own. You have to have people that believe in you and that are there for you, that are cheering you on through the ups and downs.
Absolutely. The word that was popping up in my mind was community. You have to have a community behind you.
I like to say you have to have your strength tribe.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. Love that. I talk about that in my book. Like, who is in your strength tribe?
So. Nice. And we definitely need that. I think the wording that I use, I was thinking of community when you were talking. I use Success Squad in my book. So,
I love that.
Who's on your Success Squad?
Yeah.
Awesome. So how do you go about sharing some of your successes?
Definitely, I speak. I'm a speaker all over the country. So I share my journey from my struggles and how I move from my struggles into my strength. I do a ton of interviews, TV, radio, podcasts. I think in the last year and a half, I've been on over 300, TV, radio, podcasts.
Wow.
But also, I know it's crazy, but also through my own podcast and my TV show, and social media. You've seen some of my social media posts. I'm very out there. I try to be authentic and real and say, hey, like, I struggle too. Like, this is what I'm feeling right now, or I don't have it all together. So people know me as the I Am Enough girl, because that's my branding. That is what has encompassed all of this, but also with my vulnerability and authenticity. I think that's how I reach people the most.
Absolutely. And I feel it coming through this interview as well, with you sharing just some of the challenges, you keeping it real with some of the challenges that you've had on your journey. So I appreciate that. When you say to us that you've been on 300 interviews, please tell us, what is the lesson from all those interviews that you've done? What have you learned about yourself and your career journey?
There is, to be honest, and Simone, this is the first time I've ever said this because I've never had this question asked. There's pride. I'm proud of the determination I had. I don't have a PR person. I literally have gotten all of those interviews myself. And the fact that I truly am part to my story, right? And to the authenticity and integrity. So for me, I'm proud of how far I've come in 2 years, because every time I share my story over and over again, you would think it would get like redundant and you would get bored with it and this and that. And I don't. Because every time I share my story, it empowers me and it doesn't allow me to go back to, the depressed PTSD ridden woman I was like 2 years ago. So it's real powerful.
It sounds like it. I'm right now over here. I'm thinking to myself, should I name her interview "Be Proud of Yourself"? I always get some fun going back and listening to the interview to decide what the title of the interview should be. If you had to come up with, well, actually, it could be "I Am Enough."
Yeah, it could be anything. Yeah, it's totally up to you, but. Yeah, I like the little keywords here and there, but I'm definitely known as the I Am Enough girl. So.
Yeah, I love it. What resources have you found online or otherwise that have proved the most valuable to you in your career?
Oh, goodness. So as a therapist, I mean, there's a ton of resources, Are you talking basically like through the entrepreneurship world?
No, it could be both. We have listeners who are in corporate and we have people who are entrepreneurs.
I think honestly, there's so many, but if you're like in the speaking world, there's a ton of different like speaking websites and coaching websites. I don't have one like particularly that I would like, that would jump out at me. But the things that I've gotten from, like communicating with my community, my strength tribe, that is what I have found the most resourceful. Because they're the ones that will give me, hey, check out this website, check out this idea, check out this, check out that. So that I've been able to simplify and organize more of my life based on the resources. So I love, like MailChimp and Calendly. Oh my gosh, like that's my calendar. So if people are like, hey, let's schedule a time to talk, I was doing that. And I would just like, the calls would be like all different times of the day. And then I was in a relationship and this guy's like, you have to like have a specific day like that you just do calls. Cause this is insane. Like you're doing a call here, here, here. So Calendly was a huge resource for me because now I schedule just 20-minute calls. So if people are like, hey, let's chat. I'll be like, here's my calendar, schedule a time, that works for you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those two, MailChimp and Calendly among a host of other resources.
Have you found any books that stand out for you?
Oh my goodness. I have met some amazing, I don't even know, like sometimes I like pinch myself, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, I've met them. So I have so many of their books. I absolutely love, and this has nothing to do with entrepreneurship, the business per se, but it has to do with us as a person. And that's the first thing you have to do is you have to work on yourself. So anything by Brene Brown, I absolutely 100% love her. But any of the books, like I said, from Brian Tracy, Les Brown, like those are amazing.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm familiar with those authors. And how lucky are you? I'm a big Les Brown fan. So
yes.
I imagine him to be just as jolly as he is in his videos. He just seems like a cool person.
I randomly ended up at his birthday party.
Wow.
Like I got an invite at the last minute and I was like, and that was the first time I met him. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to Les Brown's birthday. But
wow.
It helps when you live kind of in California a little bit, because some of those things just kind of come up. And he lives here. So it's awesome. But I've been very blessed. Very, very
That's
blessed.
Amazing. I'm thinking to myself, who gets invited like on you first meet Les Brown and you're invited to his birthday party. Did you go?
Oh my gosh, of course. Of course. We were, my roommate and I were in the area in LA doing something else. I can't remember. I think I spoke or I don't even know what it was. And this guy that I know from San Diego messaged me and he's like, hey, I got an extra ticket. And it was just a ticket, like meaning like, it was just a very small handful of people. So I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, I'll be there in 40 minutes because we were just leaving to go home back to San Diego. And so we turned around and it was a little bit further into LA and it was at his son's house, Les Brown Jr. So it was at his house. So it was awesome.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm sure you have many cool stories to share living in California as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Megan, what advice would you give to someone wanting to successfully own their career?
Do the deep dive to discover who you truly are. Get your values and, your priorities in place. And literally don't be afraid to be vulnerable, because when you're vulnerable and you share, whether it be, a story, like that's the one thing I learned, is that the more I was vulnerable and shared my hardships and my struggles, the more the right people came to life that allowed my business to flourish. People would, give, help me without having to pay anything, or, just giving me like free advice. So if you're focused on just making the money, I think you're going to have a harder time. You have to have this passion, and you have to be authentic and vulnerable to go after what you want, and then the money will come.
You always hear people saying that, but I think, the passion really speaks volumes for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I mean, everyone knows how passionate I am about the movement and just the phrase, I am enough. It's tattooed on my body. That is the phrase that literally got me out of bed every morning, and writing about that was my saving grace when I was going through my trauma. So you have to find something, like I said earlier, that gets you excited, that you have, personal and professional experience with, right? And sometimes it's just your story and what you've been through. I had no idea that my life would be like this going into this a year and a half ago. I have no idea what it means to run a business. I'm still clueless. I'm still learning every day, but I just went on my passion of wanting to help others and sharing my story. And here I am.
What's beautiful about your story is the ability for it to unfold. And I think that's what I'm recognizing and wanting to tell people, is that you don't have to have it all figured out. Don't let not having it all figured out keep you stuck or stalled. Start the journey, and it's going to unfold. And I think with your story, Megan, as you mentioned with the book, then that led to something even greater.
It did. I love that you just said that. I kind of have goosebumps, because I think that's why so many people feel like they can't go after their career or job or whatever that they want, because they don't think they have enough experience, or they don't know what they're doing. And it's okay. I started writing my book because I was traumatized, right? And I had my private practice. That was my main income. That is my main income. All of this other stuff just came up and happened. I have no idea about anything about business, ClickFunnels, all of that. I don't even know about any of that stuff, right? And you don't have to have that in your business, it's however you want to do your business. And so I'm still learning. It's 2 years later, and I still don't know how to put anything up on YouTube. Like, one of my friends does it for me. So it's you do what you know, right? And then you find people that will help you. And some people will do it for free, and some people you'll have to pay. But don't get discouraged by the things you don't understand. I love that you just said that, because that's huge. I'm still learning every day.
Absolutely. And I love that you said still learning every day, because I think in whatever we do, we have to continue learning so that we can grow.
Exactly. 100%.
So what's next for you?
Well, I am actually just submitted my paperwork into a nonprofit, which I'm super excited about. So I'm really focused on, my goal is to reach all 50 states by the end of the year. So really focused on, getting the word out. I just started my second book, and, focused on the TV show, I'm Enough TV. It's going to be launching soon, and I'm super excited about it.
Sounds like lots of exciting things.
Yes,
awesome.
For sure.
What is the second book on?
So it's called, I think this is what it's called. You Are Strength, 3 Steps to Unapologetically Owning Who You Are. It's going to focus on more of kind of where I've been in the last 2 years and doing some more education on like reality testing our thoughts, cognitive restructuring. So more stuff on like, how do we retrain our brain? How do we not fall into complacency? So all of that stuff. But again, people keep saying like, when are you going to write your second book so we can hear about where you've been in the last 2 years? So yes, we'll see how it goes. I haven't really started on it yet, but I have my chapter. So I have the ideas down.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to learning more about that. And I just want to say thanks so much, Megan, for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Can you please tell our listeners how they can get in touch or stay connected with you?
Yes, it's very simple. Everything is under my name, Megan Fenye, Enye. My website, all my social media. If you want to go to order your free movement cards, you can just go to IamEnoughMovement.info. Nice. And you can go there. You can order your free. You can see all the selfies of people holding their cards. Some of the interviews I've done with random strangers in this about being enough. So everything's on that website.
Awesome. Have you been embraced by the military community?
I have. So I actually did with 4 of my colleague speaker friends an event last Sunday at Camp Pendleton. It was the I Am Enough Mastermind. And so now that the movement is turning into a nonprofit, I'm getting more involved with like the veterans organizations, Chamber of Commerce for veterans, like that kind of stuff. So it's really exciting. So yes.
Awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck with everything that you do. And again, thank you so much for sharing your story on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.